After my brother got me fired, I started a competing business and took away all his best clients. I'm watching him read the email when it really sinks in that I did it. His shoulders tense, then drop. His jaw tightens. From where I'm sitting, just inside the cafe across the street, I can see the exact moment his face goes from irritated to panicked. He doesn't know I'm here. He has no idea I'm close enough to see his boss step into his office doorway, holding a printed copy of the same email from the same client, the one who used to be his before they became mine. My phone buzzes in my pocket. It's the client sending me a screenshot. Just inform Marcus we'll be moving our account to you effective immediately. Thought you'd appreciate the heads up. I stare at the screen for a second, heart thudding, then look back up at my brother through the window. He's gesturing wildly now, red in the face, the same way he used to when he argued with referees in high school soccer. The cafe smells like burnt coffee and sugar syrup. My cappuccino has gone cold. My hands are shaking, but not from guilt. It's adrenaline, and something uglier I don't like to name out loud. Satisfaction. It was a Tuesday morning when he got me fired. I remember because I'd spilled cereal on myself that day and had to change my shirt twice before leaving the apartment. And for some reason my brain has soldered those little stupid details to what came after, like they're part of the crime scene. We both worked at the same place, a small but growing IT support company that did managed services for local businesses, dentist offices, small law firms, that kind of thing. 3 guys in a strip mall office when we started, 6 techs, and a receptionist by the time everything went to hell. The irony is that he's the one who got me the job. My brother, Marcus, is 2 years older than me and grew into the kind of man my parents like to refer to as a natural salesman. Translation: he can talk anyone into anything, especially if it benefits him. He could charm teachers into bumping up his grade, charm girls into forgiving him, charm our parents into ignoring the fact that he'd stolen my car without asking again. He talked his way into his job at Brightline Tech by convincing the owner, Dave, that he could double their book of business in 12 months. To be fair, he almost did. I'm not a salesman. I'm the guy they drag along to the meeting to make the laptop stop beeping and explain things in plain English. I've been bouncing around help desk contracts and retail jobs when Marcus called me one night. "Look," he said, mouth full of something crunchy. "We need another tech. I told Dave you were decent with networks. Send me your resume. I'll get you in front of him." "You told him I was decent?" I asked. "Thanks, man." That ringing endorsement. "Don't make me regret this," he said, half joking, half not. "Seriously, don't screw it up." I didn't screw it up. In the interview, Dave asked me to describe how I'd troubleshoot a printer that randomly goes offline. I walked him through it step by step. He nodded, grunted, then said, "You available to start Monday?" Working at Brightline felt, for a while, like the closest thing I'd had to a career. I got a company polo shirt, a beat-up van with our logo on the side, and a list of client sites to visit each week. I was good at the work. I like talking to the office managers. The backbone of every business, by the way, who actually know what's going on and fixing problems for them. I like being the person who could walk into a room of frazzled people and make their screens come back to life. Marcus and I share an office, a cramped room with 2 desks and a window that looked out on the parking lot. He'd swagger in every morning with a coffee, plop down, and start dialing prospects. "You're killing it out there, man," he'd say after overhearing one of my calls with a client. "I love when they gush about you. Makes it easier for me to upsell them later." We weren't best friends or anything, but we worked. We had a rhythm. We grabbed lunch together when our schedules lined up. He flirted with the receptionist. I fixed her Wi-Fi. And then he landed the big one. Brookside Dental was a chain of 4 dental practices owned by a husband and wife team who were expanding like crazy. They had outdated servers, spotty backups, and a lot of paranoia about patient data. Marcus spent weeks working them, taking the dentist out for coffee, offering free audits, promising the moon. When they finally signed, Dave actually popped champagne in the office. "This account alone covers your salary for the year," Dave told Marcus, clapping him on the back. "You did good." Marcus grinned, soaking it up. "Couldn't do it without our star tech," he said, jerking his thumb at me. I felt my face heat up. "I mean, you got them in the door," I said. "For now." You're the only one touching their network, Dave said. Don't screw it up. That became the refrain. Don't screw it up. No pressure. Brookside was complicated. For locations, flaky legacy software, one cranky front desk lady who hated change, and a practice manager who wanted everything bulletproof but balked at any expense. I spent hours on site, tracing cables, patching, documenting everything carefully. I built them a backup strategy, set up monitoring, created idiot-proof instructions for their staff. Marcus basked in the glow. He'd talk about my big dental client at meetings, take credit for every new workstation we installed, every monthly retainer. Team effort, I'd say, because I'm apparently genetically incapable of self-promotion. 6 months later, someone clicked a phishing email. It was the perfect storm. Friday afternoon, end of the month, everyone tired. A staff member got an email that looked exactly like it was from the practice manager, with a link to updated insurance forms. She clicked. A ransomware payload hit their main server. Files got encrypted. Screens screamed at them to pay in Bitcoin. I was at another client across town when Dave called. Get your ass to Brookside now, he barked. They're locked up and freaking out. By the time I got there, the waiting room looked like a war zone. Patients were being turned away. Phones were ringing nonstop. The practice manager, Kelly, was pacing and yelling into her phone. I don't care whose fault it is, just fix it. I went into emergency mode. Booted servers in a safe mode, pulled logs, isolated affected machines, checked backups. That's when I discovered the thing that sparked the match. Their off-site backup job had been failing for 3 weeks. Not all backups, thank God. We still had some local snapshots and a cloud sync of patient records. But the full nightly image backups, the ones that would have made this a minor annoyance instead of a crisis, had been erroring out and no one noticed. The backup software had been emailing failure reports to an address that went to a general inbox. No one checked. My stomach dropped. I remembered recommending a daily manual check of the backup dashboard during the initial rollout. I also remember Marcus telling Dave, I don't think we need that. It's just extra hours on the contract they'll complain about. I could see, in real time, the mess formed by small decisions made months earlier. I stayed there until after midnight. We got most of their data back, but it was messy. They lost a day's worth of notes. They lost trust. On Monday, Brookside called Dave for a formal review. He took Marcus. I assumed I'd go too. I was the one who knew exactly what happened. Dave told me to stay in the office in case something comes in. They were gone for hours. When they came back, Marcus's face was carefully neutral. Dave's was pinched. Meeting, Dave said shortly, jerking his head toward the empty conference room. I walked in suddenly cold. He shut the door behind us. Marcus leaned in the doorway, arms crossed. Brookside is pissed, Dave said. They're talking about damages, saying we didn't put proper safeguards in place. I recommended daily backup checks, I said. Remember? In the planning meeting. I even wrote it into the... They said you never mentioned it to them. Marcus cut in. I turned to him. What? He shrugged, eyes flicking away. I don't know, man. Kelly was very clear. She said you told her backups were all automatic and she didn't need to worry about it. That's not what I said. I protested. My voice sounded thin, even to me. I said the system would run automatically, but we should still check the logs. I emailed you both about configuring alerts. Dave's jaw clenched. I never saw that, he said, because I sent it to Marcus after you said we didn't need to bill them for extra checks. I shot back. Marcus lifted his hands, playing innocent. If I'd seen it, I would have forwarded it, he said. Look, I get that you're stressed, but throwing me under the bus isn't going to help. The room spun slightly. I had receipts, emails, tickets, notes, but I also knew how this looked. A furious client, a sales golden boy, and me, the behind-the-scenes tech, tried to assert something no one else remembered. Dave sighed deeply. This is a huge account, he said. They want someone's head. They're already talking lawsuits. We need to show them we're taking action. I slid down my spine. What does that mean? He wouldn't quite meet my eyes. It means I have to let you go, he said. For a second, I thought I'd misheard him. Wait, I said. You're firing me? For what? For not reading an email from software I told you we needed to watch. It's not just that, Marcus chimed in. There've been other issues. I looked at him, stunned. What other issues? He shrugged, that casual, dismissive movement that made my teeth grind. Late to a couple of sites. Rubbing some clients the wrong way. I've had to smooth things over. That's not true, I said. If a client had a problem, they would have told me. Do you really want me to list every little complaint in front of Dave right now? He asked, raising an eyebrow. Is that going to make this better? It was like arguing with fog. I knew what was real. I also knew that the only story Dave needed to hear was client unhappy, tech at fault, sales guy heroically trying to fix it. I've given you chances, Ben, Dave said, using my name like a full stop. I like you. You do good work. But you're not worth losing this account over. I opened my mouth, closed it again. He'd already made up his mind. My emails and logs and carefully documented processes didn't stand a chance against a pissed-off client and a brother who'd built them into a cash cow. I packed up my desk in a daze. Marcus hovered in the doorway, hands in his pockets. It's not personal, he said quietly when Dave went back to his office. Just business. You know how it is. I actually laughed, a short, ugly sound. You just lied to get me fired, I said. How was that not personal? He flinched just a tiny bit. You screwed up, man, he said. You should have checked the backups. That was your call, I snapped. You're the one who cut the hours. He shrugged. Sometimes you take a risk and it doesn't pay off. Look, Dave needed to see someone taking responsibility. You were the one on the ground. It made more sense. For him, maybe. I left with a box of my stuff and a reference letter that said, Ben worked here from X date to X date, and nothing about competence. Job hunting with a fresh firing and a brother still in the same industry is fun. If your definition of fun is walking into interviews feeling like you've got liability tattooed on your forehead. I get to the final stage, then hear that they'd gone in a different direction. At one point, a recruiter I knew off the record said, Look, between you and me, Marcus told one of the directors you were let go over a major client incident. People talk. It's a small town. That one hurt. It wasn't enough that he'd pushed me off the boat. He'd also been circling it with a stick to make sure I couldn't climb back in anywhere else. I sank. Unemployment checks, long days refreshing job boards, late nights doing one-off virus removals for cash. I spiraled hard for a bit. Ate rubbish. Slept out hours. Avoided family dinners because I didn't trust myself not to make a scene. When I finally showed up at Sunday lunch after a few weeks of radio silence, my parents had that look. Half concerned, half annoyed that I disrupted the family narrative. So, how's the job hunt? My mom asked, spooning mashed potatoes onto my plate like that would soften the question. Slow, I said. Dad shook his head. You know, if you just kept your head down a bright line. I slammed my fork down a little harder than necessary. I didn't fail at Bright Line, I said. I got scapegoated. Marcus rolled his eyes. Here we go. Marcus told us there were performance issues, Mum said carefully. That you were late, didn't listen to feedback. Marcus lied, I said. My voice came out sharper than I meant. Because he messed up with his big client and didn't want to admit it. You're the one who was supposed to check the backups, Marcus said. This is what I mean, Mum. He never takes responsibility. We went in circles. My parents, who don't know a router from a toaster, had no idea who to believe. They defaulted to the son with the job, the one who could afford to pick up the check sometimes. That night, back in my tiny apartment, I opened my laptop more out of habit than hope. My inbox had another rejection. My bank app had a number that made my stomach twist. For whatever reason, instead of closing everything and zoning out to Netflix, I opened a blank document and started listing things I was actually good at. Installing networks, managing small business systems, talking clients out of bad decisions, writing documentation that normal humans could understand. I stared at the list. Then I opened a new tab and typed, how to start a small business into Google. The idea seems obvious in retrospect, like, of course you started your own thing. At the time, it felt ridiculous. Me, the guy who couldn't even convince his own boss he was worth keeping, hanging a shingle and telling the world to trust him with their systems. But the more I thought about it, the more it made a twisted kind of sense. I couldn't get anyone to hire me because of the story my brother was telling. So I needed to find people who hadn't heard the story yet, or people who didn't care. I didn't have much left in savings. Enough for a basic business registration, a cheap logo from a freelancer site, and a stack of simple business cards. I came up with the name almost without thinking, Groundwire IT. It sounded solid. Local. I used a free website template and built myself a homepage that said what I'd been telling clients for years. I speak fluent geek and human. At first, I went after the low-hanging fruit. Home offices, one-person consultancies, little nonprofits who were sick of paying enterprise-level fees for basic support. I printed a couple hundred flyers and walked them around industrial parks, introduced myself to receptionists, left cards on notice boards. It was brutal. I got a lot of polite smiles, and we'll keep this on file. I got ghosted. I got one lady who told me her nephew does computers and didn't understand why she'd pay for something he could probably figure out. But I also got a few yes. A local bakery whose point of sale kept crashing because their router was older than their apprentice. A yoga studio that wanted to live stream classes and had no idea how to set up cameras and stable Wi-Fi. A small law firm that was terrified of data breaches and needed someone to audit their setup. The first time a client wrote me a check with my business name on it, I took a picture of it. It felt more real than the generic pay stubs from Brightline ever had. I worked insane hours, on-site during the day, invoicing at night, YouTubing how to do basic bookkeeping at 2 a.m. I made mistakes, forgot to build travel time into my quotes, undercharged for a project that took twice as long as I'd anticipated. But they were my mistakes. No one could fire me for them. For the first 6 months, I avoided anything that even smelled like Brightline's territory. I didn't want to show up at one of their clients and give Marcus the satisfaction of calling me desperate. I stayed on the fringes. Then an email landed in my inbox from a generic contact form on my site. Hey, I got your details from friend. We're a dental practice with 4 locations. Our current IT provider has been unreliable. Would you be open to meeting? My stomach dropped when I saw the signature. Kelly, practice manager, Brookside Dental. I reread it 3 times. Checked the email headers to make sure it wasn't some weird prank. It was real. I could have said no. Some honorable, conflict-avoidant part of me thought I should. That's Marcus's account, that voice said. You'll start a war. Another voice, the one that remembered sitting in Dave's office being told I wasn't worth a client's anger, spoke up louder. They came to you, it said. He doesn't own them. They're not property, and they clearly aren't happy. I typed and deleted my reply 3 times before I settled on. Kelly, nice to hear from you. I'll be happy to meet and see if I can help. I should disclose that I previously worked for Brightline Tech, so I'm familiar with your setup. If that's a concern, I understand completely. Let me know what works for you. Best. Ben. She replied within the hour. Oh, I know who you are. That's actually why I reached out. Let's talk. When I walked into Brookside again, it felt surreal. Same sliding doors. Same fish tank. Different energy. Kelly looked older, more tired, but she smiled when she saw me. Honestly, I was surprised you didn't come straight to us when you left, she said, shaking my hand. I figured you were happy with Brightline, I said carefully. She snorted. We've been putting up with them because starting over is exhausting, she said. But I'm done. We get overcharged, underserviced, and the last straw was your brother implying that the fishing incident was our fault for hiring careless staff. Her mouth tightened. He actually said that in a meeting. Something in my chest loosened. For what it's worth, I said, I always told Dave and Marcus we needed to review your backups regularly. That got vetoed. I probably could have pushed harder. She waved a hand. Water under the bridge, she said. Point is, he throws his own people under the bus and blames us when it suits him. We want someone we can trust. We talked through her pain points. I didn't sling mud. I didn't have to. The gaps spoke for themselves. I put together a proposal that was fair, not stupidly cheap, but better value than what they were getting. They signed within a week. That was the first time I knowingly took one of Marcus's clients. It did not feel like stealing. It felt like correcting a story. Word gets around, slowly at first. A restaurant owner who shared a bookkeeper with the bakery. A physiotherapy clinic next door to the yoga studio. People heard some version of, we use Brightline and got sick of the turnover. We switched to Groundwire and Ben actually shows up when he says he will. I didn't have a non-compete. Brightline never made me sign one. I checked with a lawyer friend from school, just to be sure. As long as you're not taking a client list you stole or breaking an explicit agreement, you're fine, she said. Also, your brother sounds like a dick. Every time a potential client mentioned Marcus's name, I felt a little jolt. Sometimes it was neutral. Sometimes it was, he's nice, but we never see him once the contract's signed. Occasionally, it was outright anger. I didn't poach blindly. I never cold called his roster. But when someone came to me and I recognized the name, I didn't say no. I just did the best job I could and let them make their own choices. The day I signed Parkview Estates, I knew things were going to escalate. Parkview is a big property management company in our city. 3 office locations, hundreds of rental properties, lots of tiny crises needing urgent attention. They've been one of Marcus's bragging points for years. The email came from their operations manager, Samira. We're shopping around for alternative IT support. We've been with Brightline for a while, but have some concerns. Are you taking on new clients? We met in their boardroom. She was direct. We've had 3 major outages in 6 months, she said. When we complain, Marcus tells us we're expecting too much and tries to upsell us on things we don't need. I asked questions, took notes, suggested some straightforward fixes that didn't require tearing everything down. She listened, nodded slowly, then said, "You don't talk like a salesman." "Some might say that's a flaw," I said. "It's refreshing," she replied. 2 weeks later, Parkview signed a 1-year managed services contract with me. It was by far the biggest account I'd ever landed. It allowed me to hire my first part-time tech, get better monitoring tools, and stop flinching every time my rent was due. It also meant the majority of Marcus's commission checks were about to evaporate. When Samira's formal termination email hit Brightline's inbox, they clearly didn't take it well, because not even half an hour later, my phone pinged with a text from an unknown number. "You seriously went after Parkview?" I stared at the screen. I knew it was Marcus even before the scene indicator popped up. I replied, "They came to me. I didn't go after anyone." The 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. "You're a parasite," he sent finally. I typed, deleted, retyped. That's funny coming from a guy who got me fired to save his own skin. He didn't answer, which brings us back to the cafe and the email that started this story. Parkview was the last big domino. Over the next few months, a couple more of Brightline's mid-tier clients quietly transitioned to me. I didn't advertise it. I didn't gloat. I just did the work. A mutual friend told me Brightline had let 2 techs go and was restructuring. Translation, things were not going well. Then my mother called. "Can you come over for dinner this Sunday?" she asked in that overbright voice that meant there would be an agenda. When I walked in my parents' house, Marcus was already there, sitting at the table with his arms folded. He didn't look like the golden boy salesman anymore. Dark circles under his eyes, weight lost in ways that made his face look sharper, not healthier. "What's this about?" I asked, staying standing. Mom launched in before either of us could start. "You two need to sort this out," she said. "This business war." "It's not a war," I said. Marcus laughed bitterly. "Easy for you to say when you're winning." My dad cleared his throat. "Marcus tells us you've been taking his clients," he said. "They're not his," I snapped. "They're businesses who chose a different provider after being unhappy with their current one." "You knew they were with Brightline?" Marcus shot back. "You knew that would affect me." I looked at him, really looked at him. "You knew firing me would affect me," I said. "You knew telling people I was incompetent would make it impossible for me to get another job. You did it anyway." "That was different," he muttered. "How?" I asked. He didn't have a good answer. He just sat there, fuming. Mom clucked nervously, glancing between us. "We're family," she said. "You can't keep doing this to each other. Marcus has been with that company for years. It's not fair to undermine him." "I didn't undermine him," I said. "I built something from scratch because he made sure no one else would take me. If some of his clients prefer my service, that's on him." "She's right," Dad said quietly. We both turned to him, surprised. He doesn't usually pick sides. "You made your choices, son," Dad said to Marcus. "You told us you had no choice about Ben, but it sounded like you twisted the story to protect yourself." Marcus flushed. "You weren't in the meetings," he said. "You don't know." "I know my own eyes," Dad replied. "I've watched you talk your way out of things since you were a kid, and I've watched your brother eat blame he didn't deserve. That hung in the air like smoke. For a long moment, nobody spoke. The fridge hummed. A car drove by outside. I'm not claiming I did everything perfectly, I said finally. I hesitated with Brookside. I almost said no to Parkview, but I needed to pay my rent. And I'm not going to sabotage my own business to prop up the company that threw me away. Marcus stared at the table. Dave let me go last week. He mumbled. Happy now. The words hit me like a physical shove. What? I said. They said with Parkview gone and a couple others downgrading, they couldn't justify my salary, he said. Apparently reputation damage is expensive. My first reaction was not triumph. It was a weird cocktail of vindication and a sick twist of sympathy. I know what it feels like to walk out of that office with a box. I know what it does to your brain. I didn't ask for that, I said quietly. You didn't have to, he muttered. You just had to keep smiling while you took every big name I brought in. Mom started crying then, because that's her coping mechanism when things get real. Dad went to make tea because that's his. We sat there. Two grown men had both been fed to the same corporate machine at different times, staring at each other over a scratched wooden table. Do you hate me? Marcus asked abruptly, looking up. It was such a raw, boyish question that it knocked some of the anger out of me. I hate what you did, I said. I hate that you decided my life was acceptable collateral damage for your commission. I don't know how to separate that from you yet. He swallowed. I didn't think it would wreck you like that, he admitted. I thought you'd find another job. You also told people I was bad at mine, I said. Kind of limits the options. He winced. That was shitty, he said. I was scared, okay? Brookside was my biggest account. Dave was talking about cutting my percentage. I panicked. I shrugged, exhausted. You always land on your feet, I said. You'll charm your way into another gig. That's what you do. He made a face. Not everyone in town thinks I'm charming right now, he muttered. Welcome to my world, I said. We didn't resolve it neatly that night. There was no grand apology. No, I'm so proud of you, little brother's speech. We just laid some cards on the table. Over the next few weeks, I heard through the grapevine that Marcus picked up some freelance sales consulting, then a part-time role at a different company in a different part of the city. He texted me once, out of the blue. Got a lead for a small clinic on your side of town. They need IT. Want the intro? I stared at it for a long time. Then I wrote back. Sure. Thanks. He sent over the contact details without any commentary. I landed the client. I sent him a small referral fee with no commentary. It wasn't forgiveness. It was a start. So yeah, after my brother got me fired, I started a competing business. I took some of his best clients. I watched him lose his job. Some days, I feel completely justified. Other days, I wonder if I became a version of him in the process, making ruthless business decisions and telling myself it's not personal when it very obviously is. What I do know is this. I sleep better now than I did at Brightline. Not because my conscience is spotless, but because my life is in my own hands. When a client leaves, it's on me. When they stay, it's because of what my team and I do, not because someone else talked a good game in a boardroom. I didn't start Groundwire to get revenge. I started it because I was backed into a corner and needed to survive. The revenge was a side effect. A loud, messy, satisfying side effect. If I could go back, would I handle Brookside and Parkview differently? Maybe. Maybe I'd at least give Marcus a heads up, not out of obligation, but to avoid the blindsiding. Maybe I wouldn't watch him read the termination email like it was a live show. But then I think about sitting in Dave's office, being told I wasn't worth fighting for. I think about the months of hearing doors quietly shut because of a story my brother told to save his own skin. And I think, sometimes, the only way to stop being someone's collateral damage is to build something strong enough that they can't knock you over without bruising themselves too.